They told the world that Bitcoin would be liberation, a clean break from banks, from governments, from the invisible hands that print money endlessly while ordinary people struggle to keep up with rising prices. It was sold as an escape from a system where inflation quietly erodes savings and wealth, pools upward, leaving most people running in place. Bitcoin was supposed to be the exit, but history has never been kind to simple promises. Because whenever rules disappear, freedom does not automatically rush in to take their place. Very often, what follows instead is confusion, instability, and a kind of chaos that wears the mask of opportunity. Freedom, as history keeps reminding us, is never free. To understand Bitcoin, you don't begin with code or computers. You begin with trust. And more importantly, with the moment that trust collapsed on a global scale. Bitcoin is not just a technological invention. It is a reaction born from a crisis of confidence in institutions that were supposed to protect society, but instead exposed their own fragility. In 2008, the global financial system imploded in full view of the public. Banks had built towering structures of leverage on shaky foundations. Governments failed to intervene in time, and when the system finally broke, it wasn't executives or policymakers who absorbed the pain. It was ordinary people. Homes were foreclosed, jobs vanished overnight, retirement accounts were gutted, and entire communities were left behind. At the same time, central banks responded by creating trillions of dollars out of nothing, rushing to rescue the very institutions whose reckless behavior caused the collapse. Losses were socialized, profits were protected, and the message was impossible to ignore. The financial system was not built on fairness or stability. It was built on belief, and belief alone. In the middle of that breakdown, far from the spotlight of news headlines, something unusual appeared on a cryptography mailing list. An unknown figure using the name Satoshi Nakamoto shared a short document that proposed a radical idea. He wasn't offering reform. He wasn't asking for regulation. He was suggesting replacement. The document described a form of money that did not rely on trust in banks or governments. It proposed a peer-to-peer electronic cash system secured by cryptography instead of institutions. Bitcoin would have a strictly limited supply, capped forever at 21 million coins. No central authority would control it. No politician could inflate it. No committee could quietly change the rules. Every transaction would be recorded on a public ledger, later known as the blockchain. This ledger would be transparent, permanent, and immutable, creating a financial history that could not be rewritten or erased. It was a direct response to the failures of 2008. A monetary rebellion expressed not through protests or slogans, but through mathematics. When the first block of Bitcoin was created, Satoshi embedded a message inside it, quoting a newspaper headline about banks on the brink of another bailout. It wasn't an accident or a technical detail. It was a statement of intent. Bitcoin wasn't just software. It was a critique of the system itself. Mining, the process that keeps Bitcoin alive, was often misunderstood. It had nothing to do with digging into the earth. Instead, computers competed to solve complex mathematical problems, verifying transactions and securing the network. Each successful solution added a new block to the chain and rewarded the miner with newly created Bitcoin. No government enforced the rules. No bank approved transactions. The system ran on incentives, competition, and code. Early adopters were drawn less by profit and more by principle.
Libertarians, programmers, and economists who believed money should be separated from political power gathered in small online communities. Bitcoin had little value at first, traded for pennies and fractions of dollars. One user famously spent 10,000 Bitcoin on 2 pizzas, a purchase that would later become a symbol of both innocence and irony.
As Bitcoin's value grew, the nature of participation began to change. What started as an ideological experiment slowly transformed into a speculative asset. Prices rose rapidly, media attention followed, and exchanges emerged to meet growing demand. Overnight, Bitcoin markets became worth billions of dollars. Then, reality intruded. In 2014, one of the largest exchanges, Mt. Gox, collapsed after hundreds of thousands of bitcoins disappeared. There was no regulator to step in, no authority to freeze accounts, no insurance to soften the blow. The blockchain recorded every stolen coin in perfect clarity, but it offered no mechanism for recovery. This exposed the central paradox of Bitcoin. The technology worked exactly as designed. It was the human layer built on top of it that failed. By removing intermediaries, Bitcoin also removed mediators. Transactions were irreversible. Errors were permanent. Responsibility was absolute. As the broader crypto ecosystem expanded, so did deception. Scams multiplied, fake wallets circulated, and complex schemes targeted newcomers who didn't fully understand the risks. Billions of dollars were lost, not because cryptography failed, but because trust was misplaced. Even hardware wallets could not protect users from willingly sending funds to the wrong address. Bitcoin offered freedom, but it demanded vigilance. It stripped away safety nets that people had grown accustomed to, forcing individuals to become their own banks, their own security departments, and their own risk managers. You could have sovereignty, or you could have protection. You could not have both. Despite this, belief persisted. Bitcoin was never just money. It was a statement, a protest against centralized control. That belief reached its most ambitious form when a country decided to turn theory into law. El Salvador announced that Bitcoin would become legal tender. Its president framed the decision as a revolution, a way to break free from dependence on the US dollar and bring financial access to millions who were excluded from traditional banking. For a moment, the world watched with fascination. A national wallet was launched. Free Bitcoin was distributed. Entire neighborhoods became symbols of a digital future. But everyday life proved less idealistic than theory. Most people did not want to buy groceries with an asset that could lose significant value overnight. They wanted stability, not volatility. When Bitcoin's price crashed, the government's holdings plunged with it. Protests erupted, and technical problems undermined confidence. By 2025, the experiment revealed its limits. Bitcoin remained legal, but its use became optional. Most citizens returned to dollars for daily life. The promise of liberation faded into cautious pragmatism. What El Salvador demonstrated was not failure, but realism. Bitcoin was not a complete financial system, it was a tool. That tool rewarded knowledge, discipline, and access, and in doing so, it exposed inequality rather than eliminating it. While nations debated policy, a different force quietly shaped Bitcoin's markets: whales. A tiny fraction of holders controlled a massive share of the total supply. When these large holders moved their coins, markets reacted instantly. In traditional finance, this level of influence would raise red flags and trigger investigations. In Bitcoin, it was simply part of the game. There were no disclosure requirements, no insider trading laws, no penalties for manipulation. Strategies that would be illegal elsewhere were normalized. This revealed another uncomfortable truth. Bitcoin removed government control, but it did not remove power. It redistributed it. By 2025, Bitcoin had become both myth and mirror. It symbolized freedom while reflecting greed, ambition, and inequality. Prices surged again. Political figures embraced crypto-friendly rhetoric, and speculation returned with familiar enthusiasm. The phrase, "this time is different," echoed once more. History, however, rarely changes its ending. It only changes its costume. Bitcoin succeeded in removing state control over money. What followed was not equality, but responsibility without relief. No regulators, no safety nets, no second chances. The blockchain recorded truth with perfect accuracy, but it offered no justice. Stolen funds could be traced in public view, watched as they moved across wallets and exchanges, yet remained unreachable. The system was honest, but the world around it was not. Bitcoin was not broken. Human nature was unchanged. The community's response remained consistent. Don't trust, verify. Control your keys. Secure your wallet. For the disciplined and informed, this worked. But for most people, it wasn't freedom, it was stress. Bitcoin stood apart from the broader crypto landscape, slower and more secure, designed as digital gold rather than a playground. Yet it was surrounded by thousands of projects promising riches and revolution. Most vanished quickly, and when they did, Bitcoin absorbed the reputational damage. The deeper issue was not greed alone, but the absence of structure. Power did not disappear when gatekeepers were removed. It migrated, shifting from governments to wallets, from regulators to algorithms, from institutions to whales. Bitcoin proved that money could exist without a state. It also proved that freedom without structure eventually decays into chaos, and chaos always creates new rulers. Bitcoin did not eliminate power, it gave it a new address. Perhaps that is Bitcoin's true legacy, not financial, but philosophical. It forces an uncomfortable question that society has yet to answer. Can freedom survive without accountability? Because even in a stateless system, power never vanishes. It simply changes hands and changes wallets.